Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes podcast, the show where we review oddball movies, have oddball discussions, and occasionally take questions from you, the oddball fans.
I'm Tony Southcott.
I am Albert Berg, and the oddball movie for this week is a little something that is on Netflix currently called The Invitation.
This one it's a very, very dark, it feels almost like a home invasion movie at certain points, but let's go give a quick synopsis for it.
Well, I want to mention, you actually saw this in theaters, Tony. This actually did get a theatrical run. It wasn't a bigger movie. It was very easy to miss if you weren't kind of a movie nerd, and even if you are a movie nerd, as I am, I decided whenever this was out, I was like, I don't have to go see that.
I was actually at the world premiere for this.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, like the director and about 5 of the actors were there.
This was at the Stanley Film Festival?
Yep, which still stands above all other film festivals so far. A bunch of Colorado ones got canceled this year, but are coming back next year. So I'm really excited to see that. They're actually putting in a film hall at the Stanley just because of the success of this film festival.
I can imagine this movie being a great hit at a film festival. Like, this feels like a great festival movie. It doesn't quite as much work outside of that setting. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. But I feel like that there's a feeling you would get in that kind of exclusive, limited run type of a theater when you're watching this and nobody else has seen it. You have no preconceptions and you go into this not knowing what you're getting, that you don't get that same feeling watching this on Netflix.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also just the environment where you're amped up because the director was there talking about it beforehand, talking about what it means and how important the movie was for them, and just being in the atmosphere of only movie buffs who are looking to be scared, who are looking for that perfect suspense movie. They're digging so deep that they paid $400 to be there to see some movies that might never see the light of day, and then you get ones like this, which really should see more light.
And the plot to this movie is that there is a man who is invited to his ex-wife's house for a party, a get-together, let's say. His name is Will. And he shows up. They're there with a bunch of their friends. And it's difficult to know exactly how far to go with the synopsis. I think we can reveal that the reason that they've split up is that him and her son, when they were married, he died in a tragic accident.
A tragic piñata accident.
Yeah, I must have missed exactly what happened there.
I actually don't know if it's piñata. I just know that somebody was swinging a bat, and I think that they were blindfolded and just cracked him upside the head. It's not like the method isn't as important as what just happened in general.
Okay, I kind of thought it was the way they were showing the bat. I thought it was somebody hit a baseball and hit him in the head with a baseball.
It might be that too.
Which your thing might be making more sense. I may not have been looking at the screen when that came out. Maybe there was a Pokemon that popped up, Tony, in Pokemon Go. I mean, no, I'm professional. Okay.
Al's in it right now. He's trying to catch that last Rattata in his house.
Here's what I will say about this movie. This movie makes you feel bad. This is not a fun movie to watch. There was never a yeah moment in this at all.
No,
it was just depressing all the way through. Even
when there's moments where things are starting to get a little bit lighter and people are having fun and they're busting out the coke and girls are making out, then all of a sudden,
all of that has an undertone of something's wrong here.
Yeah, then you've got John Carroll Lynch basically just very monotonely talking about how he murdered his wife.
Manslaughter, sort of. I mean, let's give him credit where credit is due. By the way, for those of you who don't know the name, John Carroll Lynch, the only other thing I know him from sure is that he plays the guy who is very strongly hinted to be the Zodiac killer in the Zodiac movie with
which is a really good
David
movie.
Lynch. Yes, and he does a great job there. He's basically playing that same character, sort of dead-eyed, very stiff, kind of not 100% socially adjusted guy.
No, the funny thing is he's kind of a comedian. He's been in a lot of roles where he's like the goofy dad and he's usually all light and moving around and everything. And I heard him talking about this particular movie on Bill Burr's podcast and how much different it was to be able to get to do that. Because in Zodiac, he doesn't really get to express it a lot. He gets a few scenes. And in this movie, he got to go fully there.
He does a great job. He very much sells the sort of undertone of tension here. And so these guys, he shows Will shows up to this party with his girlfriend. All these people know each other from before. It's not just him splitting up with his wife, but they all just kind of drifted apart after this death because they were all together when it happened. Like, it happens at this party that they're at. This is kind of revealed throughout the movie, but I don't feel like it's a spoiler exactly. It's just sort of information that's given to you little bit by little bit. And then his ex-wife and her new husband bust out a laptop and show them all a video that this cult that they're in made of this woman dying. They say of cancer.
Yeah, but she looks rather healthy.
She looks, on this bed, but while the cult leader talks her down, played by the guy who plays the manager in *Halt and Catch Fire*, where I know him from. And what's that guy's name, by the way? I'm sure he's way down here on the list somewhere. Toby Huss. He just shows up in that video, but he had really great presence in those moments, or has that like kind of dark intensity.
Yeah, it's very, very much like the typical cult leader type thing. You've got a bald guy who's very confident and spouting a lot of metaphysical crap, and like he just has people completely enwrapped. And you don't see him a lot. You see him in like 2 or 3 different video instances, but it's still fascinating what he can do with just a few scenes.
And the main thrust of the movie is that Will is on edge. He thinks something is wrong. He's looking for a reason to, be worried. And he's dealing with his grief after the passing of his son, whom his ex-wife claims to have gotten over through the help of this cult. And she says, "Oh, I'm happy and I'm free now, and you can be happy too." And he's like, just busted up real bad.
Yeah. Well, it's even weird for him because it's the first time he's been in that house for a long time. He's just kind of wandering around, like having memories of various rooms and things.
And the whole movie is basically a crescendo with some like back and forths toward the answer of, okay, what is going on? One of my problems with this movie, Tony, is that I think it takes too long getting where it's going. I feel like you could tell this story better in like 40 minutes.
Probably. Like, I'd give it like at least an hour to do its thing. It did work a lot to build up this tension, and it's a well shot movie too, so it's not like something that you hate looking at.
No, it's not. I guess part of it was beyond his grief. I didn't know anything about Will as a character.
Yeah, you never find out what he does. You never find out what he like, anything but the fact that he's grieving.
Right, and all of these people are basically that, you have sort of like, oh, here's the gay couple. Oh, here's the crazy girl. I mean, she has some character at least.
Yeah, Sadie's pretty fun.
She's pretty memorable, and then you have the wife who's sort of playing the like weird flowing dress kind of Madonna figure in the whole cult thing, as well as, the ex-wife, but nobody has anything. You never get established for who these people are.
You kind of see a little bit with what's his name? It's the main guy. He's Dario in Game of Thrones.
Oh, is it Michiel Hushman?
Yeah. Whenever he's on there, he's talking about like how he used to be just this record producer, and he was running a life that he hated and he couldn't figure it out until he got the invitation, and then everything in his life started getting better. You know that he's in rehab, you know that he's fairly well off. Like, there's a lot going on that they'll reveal about him. And he's also playing the whole time just trying to calm Will down, doing the very passive, it really offends me that you're being so rude about my hospitality, and doing all that. Like, I felt that he was probably the most convincing in this, but it was also like weird that he's wearing like a rope for a belt when they're having multiple $1,000 bottles of champagne.
I thought that was kind of to go with the hippie aesthetic, sort of.
Probably.
We're in a cult and we're above herding cows or something.
Yeah.
But that was okay. It just, to me, it felt like there were a lot of times where the movie just fell into, well, the movie does two things repeatedly. It has Will have a conversation with one of the members of the party, like, this is a huge house, so they're all just sort of separated out from time to time, and it feels very almost like a play. And then the other thing it does repeatedly is have him have a flashback to when the son was alive. And those things work as individual scenes, but when you start piling them up, to me, it sort of started to feel a little bit just...
Yeah, it felt like at moments that it was just trying to fill that 90 minutes to be a full-length movie.
Yeah, and I think you could have done... I I understand the purpose of having a bigger house. I think that there is something to be said about this, but I think that maybe this would have been a stronger and a tighter story if you had fewer characters.
Possibly. Like, especially if you're not going to expand on where those characters are. Like, you find out that Miguel or whatever is a doctor. You see a few little things there. You see that you get more hints about the Asian girl's personality, just stuff like that. But they don't really, they don't make any of those characters memorable. Like, I'm never going to remember back and think about, Will from this movie or Kira or some of these other characters.
I do like, there was an interesting moment that I thought about. I mean, it wasn't a specific moment, but Will's look in this, you see that before he was very clean shaven. And in this movie, he has the full beard, he has the long hair. And to me, it seemed very blatant that they were going for the Jesus look.
Yeah, I kind of thought that too. It's I'm surprised they didn't have him in sandals.
I don't know what that means exactly, because in the context of the cult, he's trying to sort of suss out the truth, but he's also suspicious. He's not bringing them anything. He doesn't have any light for them so much.
And he's turning down the wine at every turn.
But he does. That seems like that's a purposeful choice. That you don't just have this guy come into this very religiously charged type of a movie looking like Jesus for no reason. But I didn't know why he looked like Jesus.
Yeah, because it's not like he's unkempt. He's just got the long hair and everything. It's not ratty. The beard's not overgrown and weird. They just went for just a complete change from what he was.
But where this movie, I think, works is as a meditation on grieving. I think that ultimately this is, it's exploring the grieving process in a very kind of, sort of metaphorical way, where it's telling you through the process of the movie, it's saying, hey, look, grieving is hard. Grieving will, break you apart. Grieving will basically tear apart your world and make everything awful. And you have to accept that to get through it. You have to.
Yeah, there is no Band-Aid for it. There's no one that can just tell you it's going to be better and that you can ignore it and just be better.
And I can't go into more specifics without spoiling the movie. And I don't want to spoil the movie because especially the very end is very compelling and fun. But I do think it fits into that theme. If you see the movie, you'll understand that it is about that process of grief and how much it takes from you and how deep those, that pain goes and what that process is like, what it is to lose someone so close and so young. And I thought as that kind of metaphor, it really worked. But I think I like it when a movie has a message. I really do. But I do think it needs to be a little bit more than that. And I wish, as I mentioned earlier, they'd explored more. Not every character. I mean, even if you don't use all of these characters more, if they'd explored some of the characters a little bit more deeply, I think that would have heightened this movie and maybe taken it in a more natural direction. There's a lot of this that feels just a little bit forced, just a little bit like you can see the writer thinking okay, now we're going to have this scene and now we're going to have this scene behind the camera. And I don't know if I'm describing that well, but
it kind of makes sense because this was Karen Kusama, the director. It was her kind of bouncing back from going into movies that got absolutely dismantled and changed by the studio. I went to her panel on this afterwards, and she was talking about how with both Jennifer's Body and Aeon Flux, the story that she wanted to tell and the story that had been written out for it just got completely changed, and this was her first chance to raise the money and do everything the way she wanted to. So maybe there needs to be some sort of discipline in between that.
Yeah, I would like to see done more from her. I would like to see her work with the bigger budget because this is a very much contained story. It all happens in the house.
I was almost surprised there wasn't a Blumhouse logo before all this because it's exactly what they go for.
It is. It really is. I think it's a little bit more cerebral than Blumhouse.
That's true.
Normally does. I think they want
more like A24 because A24 is always distributing the ones that are The Gift and a little bit more on the psychological thriller end.
Yeah, A24 is a higher, I would say they spend more. You look at Swiss Army Man, that's a movie that clearly costs more than The Invitation to make because you have, even though it's not super high budget, you have, different locations, you're outside, you're moving around. You have, I think, in something like Swiss Army Man or The Witch or whatever, those are much, even if they're not big Hollywood movies, but they feel bigger than this where it's just in the one house.
Yeah, it's not like movies that have to be done on a 10-day shoot because of budgetary reasons and things.
Yeah, and also A24, I think, is just a distributor, so they'll let you make the movie and then see like, oh, well, we like this one, and they'll distribute it.
I think I've got A24 on the brain because I watched Green Room the other week.
But good for Karen?
Yeah, Karen.
Oh.
It's spelled a little odd. It's Karyn, so...
Yeah, I was like, I got to remember that correctly. But good for her for scraping together the money and getting this done. You can tell it's a passion project. You can tell it shows that lower budget, but I think it uses it pretty well. And I'd like to see her continue and grow into more stuff that she can prove herself with this. It's interesting that she got to start out with Aeon Flux, right? Like I don't know if that was her first.
It was her second movie. The first one was Girl Fight. Even
so, Girl Fight had Michelle Rodriguez, so I guess maybe wasn't as big. She's still not huge, but kind of a big name. It seems like she worked with some bigger stars. You got Aeon Flux with Charlize Theron, you've got Jennifer's Body with Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried, and then you get to The Invitation, and it's a much smaller story. There's no big stars. Doesn't have a female lead, which I thought was interesting. Especially now that we're looking at her filmography.
Her next one is a part of an anthology called XX, which is basically horror segments, kind of like a VHS type movie.
Well, hopefully it's better than Southbound. But I don't think I have a whole lot else to say. We could get into the ending, but I don't have a real deep need to spoil this movie, Tony. I think people...
Do you feel like that ending added to what the movie overall had to say, or do you think it was just fun?
No, I think it definitely added to what the movie was saying overall. So. I think it's very much a part of that metaphor, and I can't say anything else because that'll be a spoiler.
So I would still recommend this movie. It's not it's not one that we're going to be shouting from the rooftops to go see, but if you got an hour and a half and you got some Netflix and you like that kind of the darker style, maybe give it a shot. Or
maybe you give Stranger Things a shot, Tony. This is really what I've been wanting to talk about this whole episode. We got that out of the way. We talked about The Invitation. Have you got started on Stranger Things yet?
No, I didn't. I'm in the arena so my last few nights have just been I don't have time to watch Stranger Things. Damn it.
You don't this is not a good time to get started until your story is done because you won't want to stop watching.
Hopefully I'll be done with it tonight, so I'll be able to start tomorrow or something, but I really want to. Everyone's like, man, it's so much like if you just took Spielberg straight out of the 80s and told him to make a TV show.
It's no, here's what it is. It's like you took Spielberg straight out of the 80s and had him adapt classic Stephen King.
That's
it
even
is
better.
Absolutely E.T. meets It.
That's so good. I want to watch it, damn it.
It's great, and it's the perfect blending too, right? You have that great sort of... And Stephen King and Steven Spielberg both do the younger kids kind of at that puberty age where everything's sort of topsy-turvy and confusing and things, and it really puts that aspect of those kinds of movies into the show. It's beautifully shot. The special effects are amazing. The monster thing is actually a physical effect, it's a dude in a suit with animatronic stuff on it for a lot of shots, not every single one, but they just killed it. I wish we could talk about it more. We
might have to do a spoiler cast for this one just to get it out of our systems. It even ends well. They are talking about doing a sequel series. We left some spare ends or whatever. I'm like, no, I want more Stranger Things. I want another series, but I don't want it to be with these people. I don't need it to be Sin City: A Dame to Kill For. Yeah. Where they just picked up and they're like, and here's all these other characters again. That was so disappointing, by the way. I didn't even watch that one because I love that first movie too much.
I thought it was cool to start with. You bring in the new lady, what's her face?
Eva Green.
Eva Green. Right. You bring in Eva Green. She's all sexy. She's a new character. That's great. But then it's literally everybody from the first movie teamed up again in basically the same way. They even brought back Bruce Willis. They had a Bruce Willis ghost just hanging around, maybe that's from the comic books. I don't know. I just wanted to see. I was like, okay, here's this cool premise. Let's see more things from this weird, messed up place with a few of the characters from the first one crossing over into that story. And instead, it felt just like, well, and here's where that character left off, and then we picked them up. I didn't want that. Anyway, Stranger Things is good, guys. Nobody came here for the Sin City Dame to Kill For review, but I felt like such a missed opportunity to do something cool and new, and they just made a sequel. Anyway, and I want the Stranger Things. There are things that are kind of left ambiguous in the Stranger Things ending where you could keep going, but what would they? Well,
I want more franchises to not be afraid of doing like the single season arc. If they have a story that lasts a single season, like go ahead and finish up with that and then pull like the American Horror Story and come up with an entirely different series, different place, different everything, like with the same title, just like bring it in like that. You've got multiple stories to tell. You don't have to sap the same people dry if you don't have story there.
That is exactly what I want. I want Stranger Things to be like American Horror Story, where they keep the aesthetic. They keep the same directors. These Duffer Brothers guys are amazing, but do different towns and different stories with different characters. That's what I want.
I think you need to write that to Netflix.
I'm sure they thought of it. They're like, wait a minute. Are you saying we could make a sequel series that doesn't? I'm pretty sure they've thought of that.
Well, like also the title really fits for a show like that. Like for a different season, like Stranger Things, you could always have Stranger Things happening in different places.
Yeah, I was real disappointed. The one disappointment I have with the show is that nobody ever says the title. I was like, we got to the last episode and there was like a line that set up perfectly for somebody to say, well, Stranger Things have happened. Nobody said it. I was mad. That
sounds pretty infuriating. It's still not as infuriating as like Now You See Me 2.
TOO, Tony. Now you see me too. Now everybody sees me is the third one.
I wonder if that'll get a third one. Guessing not.
Did we get any questions this week, Tony?
Yes, we did. We got several questions from several people. The first one is apparently the most important question we've been asked because it sparked a Twitter debate. Lindsay, Geek Girl Co. asks, peanut butter, creamy or crunchy?
I have to admit, I'm nervous about needing to have an opinion about this.
Yeah, I kind of am too, because I'm like, man, there are times where crunchy is perfect. There are times where creamy is perfect. I default more to creamy because like on my diet, it's one of the only things I can have. I can have like a big scoopful for like 7 carbs. And it's just a nice little sweet thing. And the crunchy has more carbs, so I usually get the creamy. But I like both. How is it so, like, is it that bad to really like both? I prefer putting crunchy peanut butter on my waffles. I prefer creamy peanut butter in my sandwiches.
What if we like compromise and say you can have creamy peanut butter and then sprinkle like broken up peanut bits over the creamy peanut butter?
I mean, that's just making crunchy peanut butter.
No, but see, then the peanuts are fresh. So you could argue that it's extra crunchy.
Yes. You could even toast them a little bit more if you really want that crunch.
I'm not a big peanut butter eater.
That's weird.
I have it sometimes. Like, I will have it from time to time, but generally it's my wife that just, like, goes and gets a spoon and has, like, a giant dollop of peanut butter and sucks on it like a sucker.
See, I do that.
Until it's all gone.
I do that a lot. My problem is once I open a can, I usually finish it within 2 days. It's just like spoon, then a few hours later, another spoon, just nonstop.
I have that problem with other foods, like potato chips, not so much with peanut butter.
Oh, it's even better if you got like crackers to put on them, or to put the peanut butter on.
I'm trying to come up with like an equivalent something that I care a lot about, so that I could sort of relate to this question. But
what about like Nutella?
Have I had Nutella?
Probably
I don't know if
not.
I've had Nutella.
If you don't know, then you definitely have not had Nutella. It's basically chocolate and hazelnut and a peanut butter thick spread that tastes absolutely amazing.
I've had the chocolate Nutella things where you dip the little crunchy sticks in it. Does that count?
Sort of. It's not enough to get addicted. It's like just taking a puff off a cigarette instead of like the whole pack.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just don't eat peanut butter that often. And when I do, I just have whatever my wife has bought. I feel like we've let down both sides here. Everybody's mad.
Why? Because I'm like diplomatic about it and you're like impassive?
I just don't care. I read all those tweets. I read people say, man, my finger is going to be on the unfollow button. And I was like, I don't, you guys are going to be disappointed either way.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of strong opinions about like the questions that have been asked today, and they're not the most important. Like, they're not the most important to me. Like, the next question is directly from also Geek Girl Co. about toilet paper being like over or underhand, and I could not give a shit. I don't care if it's sitting on the counter.
Irony.
Seriously, like, put it on the counter, put it within reach, and I do not care.
Yeah, see, okay. When it makes it onto the roller, I prefer for it to be over. But that's a rare occurrence in our house. I'm just going to lay it all out there for you. There's not a lot of times when we decide to pull the little spindle off, pull the little roll off from before, and put the new roll on, and make sure it's going the right way. That's a lot of work.
See, for me, it's more that whenever I put it properly on there, my cat decides it's time to just wheel it out all over the floor.
Well, that's a problem also with toddlers. But, it's so much. I mean, I know it doesn't sound like a lot of work. I realize as I'm saying these words that I sound like a terrible person. But
you won't take the forehand motions to properly take care of your hygiene?
It works just the same way if it's sitting on the windowsill, Tony. This is one of the things that I think I'm hypocritical about, because probably it's more work in the long run to leave it sitting out.
Probably.
So if you did a little bit of work to begin with, you could save yourself some work.
Yeah, but it's like the literal work of reaching your arm. We're not old and feeble yet. Like, I might feel and look old and feeble, but I'm not there yet.
So my answer to this question is over. Ideally.
All right, what's the third question? It's all buried. Al has them.
The third question is from David Webb, who asks, what was the last movie you watched with your parents?
I usually watch Game of Thrones with my parents, which can get awkward sometimes. I
think it was a Peanuts thing with me, or something that the kids were watching with them. Does it have to be the whole movie?
I would say whatever you were watching last and actually sat down to watch. If I did it by that way, I think it would be Civil War.
Oh, so you guys went to the theater together. It's always at my mom's house if we watch a movie together. I'm thinking about, I think it has to be back at Christmas when we watched like Charlie Brown Christmas special. I cannot think of anything more recent. We used to kind of plan movie nights together a little bit more frequently, but not so much these days. Get kind of busy with stuff in the evening with doing podcast things and streaming and whatnot. So
yeah, I got like 2 Beer Tuesday and stuff in the evenings.
And my dad falls asleep.
And my dad does too. My dad needs a sleep apnea mask. It's just like rumbling through the house.
If you want to, that's the problem, right? Because I have 2 kids, and by the time you get over there and you eat dinner and you sit down to watch a movie on their tiny television that they have in their house, it's already 7 o'clock. Your movie probably isn't going to be done until 9. And by that time, you've been sitting there.
Your dad wakes up at like 5 a.m. every day, doesn't he?
Yes. Yes, he does. Every day.
I've been waking up at 6 every day recently just to try it out.
Have you been going to bed earlier, or are you still going to bed at 2? Because that's
I've been
not
going to bed
fly.
around midnight.
Okay.
So, like, getting that 6 hours of sleep is about all I need to actually function. And so, like, the past few days, it's like, oh, I got up and had my running done before I had to do anything else for the day. And all of a sudden, I'm way more productive. I had my 10,000 steps by, like, 2 in the afternoon instead of wandering through the neighborhood in the middle of the night. It sucks for the first 30 minutes or so, but then it's good.
I just get ready to be gone before the movie is over. So that's why, like, a Charlie Brown Christmas special is like 30 minutes and you're out. You're like, okay, I'm done. But if actually sit and watch an entire motion picture at my parents' house, I do not remember the last time I did that.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to be watching The Hogfather over there. That's like 4 hours.
Yes, my sister will come over and watch The Hogfather for Christmas some years. That used to be a yearly tradition for us, and we have let that fall by the wayside last couple of years for basically the same reasons. Kids screw everything up, man. Don't have kids.
My sister's been talking about that a little bit just because her kid is now 9 months and like basically trotting and going everywhere. Just like little lightning bolt already. It's so crazy how strong that kid is.
He's like the Flash guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Run like the Flash guy, Daddy. That's what AJ says. Among many other things. His new phrase right now, AJ's new phrase is like, you'll say something about like, I'm having trouble with this pancake or whatever. I'm just using the word pancake as an example. You'll say something about a pancake and he'll be like, what pancake are you talking about, Daddy? What pancake are you talking about? Like, it could be something right in front of you or like right there in the room. And I don't know what it is, but like he picked up on that. What X are you talking about? And that's his new thing that he says.
Interesting.
It's weird. I don't know who said it to him first. He's picking up stuff that I don't know where it's coming from. It's kind of scary.
I always there's always those threads about like the weirdest things your kid has said to you, like the creepiest things. And like I was reading one of those the other day, and it was like a 2-year-old, and he's like talking to this 6-month-old, and he's like, I wish you could talk to tell me what heaven was like, because I'm starting to forget, and all this like weird stuff. Just like, kids are so weird.
I try to get ahead of that game though, but I try to say the weird stuff to him first. So like he's scared of the dark, and I'm like, listen, if you stay in your bed, the bug monsters can't get you. Their eye stalks only extend up to the edge of the bed. All right. But if you put your hand out there, those pincers are going to come right off and just sever that at the ankle. And my wife gets mad at me.
I think that's perfectly appropriate. I mean, it's like, you got to set up those boogeymen.
He's getting to the point where he's afraid now. He's just turned 4, and he's at the point where he like gets up like 3 times where he goes, I'm scared.
That imagination like, just gets a little too strong.
There was like, because my wife had like hit the wall or something to kill a bug, and he's like, I heard a banging noise, and my wife's like, I just hit the wall to kill a bug, and I was like, yeah, it was 3 feet long, and it was burrowing through the plaster to come and get you. We killed it. Its guts are all over her hands. Look at them.
It's like, this is how you make people like us.
Yep. That's what I'm working on.
Vampires and crazy bugs.
Oh, it's so much fun. He doesn't like, he laughs though. He's not necessarily scared of that. My wife's worried that he's going to be scared. He's just worried about like the noises in the dark. But he doesn't like loud noises anyway, so I'm sure that's even worse for him. Yes. But if you paint him a picture of a monster, like with words, he doesn't seem to mind. Until he's like middle of the night and wakes up from it. Speaking of monsters with their pictures painted in words, and also literally, the other thing I've been like just devouring lately is Alan Moore's run on the Swamp Thing. We talked a little bit about that on the Dirt Block, but you are completely obsessed now. I'm in love with that run. That is a beautiful, beautiful story. There's a scene. I don't know what I got into on the Dirt Block, so I might be repeating myself, but there's a scene in the Swamp Thing where he has sex with a human woman. Definitely did not get onto that on the Dirt Block. It is trippy and weird. Like, okay, I want to paint the picture here. He does not grow like a branch penis and like thrust into her. It's not like that. Alan Moore writes it in such a way that, she comes and confesses her love to him. It was a beautiful scene. And he tells her, hey, I'm into you too. Hippies. But then he says, what? Nothing. It was about hippies. Alan Moore's great. You shut up. He says to her, but we're not like compatible. And she says, what, you mean like having sex? And he says, yeah, you're going to need something kind of along those lines. And so he produces this fruit from inside of him and has her eat the fruit. And it like sends her down this psychedelic mind trip, like sort of becoming one with the forest as he is one with the forest. And the way it's drawn and the way he writes it, it sounds like either like the weirdest porn or the cheesiest thing that you can imagine. But the way Alan Moore writes that scene, it's so beautiful. It sounds like Alan Moore has done ayahuasca. Alan Moore's done a lot of stuff. He does a lot of like weird spiritual stuff in that I was gonna say show that run of the comic. I think him and Neil Gaiman are kind of on the same wavelength, except that Alan Moore really believes what he's talking about. I don't know. Neil Gaiman kind of has this playful thing where you're like, he knows about all these myths, but he's sort of like, yeah, I can use these for my storytelling. You get the sense from Alan Moore that he's like, no, this is serious stuff. There is like the Swamp Thing might be real. You don't know.
I've always heard his beard is the last line of defense in case of nuclear attack.
Well, there's a whole series of stuff about nuclear stuff in the Swamp Thing. I highly recommend. If you can go find Saga of the Swamp Things, it's like in 6 volumes on Amazon right now, and it is just beautiful and creepy and wonderful in all the right ways. Weird.
That was actually one of my favorite action figures growing up. I had this one that would you could charge up and make him glow in the dark.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, just awesome old Swamp thing. I can't even remember exactly like where I got it. I think it was more based off that short run cartoon series. But either way, it was pretty awesome to get there. All I remember about the cartoon series is that like I watched 5 episodes where he had supposedly like turned into a puddle and was never coming back, and then I never got to find out what happened.
Oh, I bet he came back, Tony.
I'm betting so, but it's I still feel robbed of my childhood for never having been able to finish watching that. It's like not knowing what happened with Beast Wars.
I will say the fascinating thing about Swamp Thing is there's, I don't know if they kept to the comics code. I think at one point he wanted to have like some zombies, and that was against the comics code authority, so they wouldn't allow them to have it. But reading it now, it's like there's no profanity, there's no nudity, except for I think there was like some weird zombie nudity at one point where, but it wasn't like explicit and or sexual. And
it's
yet
like PG-13 nudity.
Yeah, again, it was like in shadow and stuff, but at the same time, somehow without any explicit swearing, with any explicit nudity, he makes this comic feel so adult. Like he gets super creepy with it. There's times that scene I mentioned, like despite the fact that there's no nudity, there's no like obvious, specific reference to anything that you could call actual sex. It feels incredibly erotic, and also very moving. And it's odd how he's able to get into that adult space within those rules and those confines of, sort of what was acceptable at the time.
Yeah, because that one came out like early 80s?
I think it's later 80s. I have not looked at the publication date, but I know it was before the 90s.
So at least when he started with zombies, you were saying some like commission said that they couldn't do it?
The Comics Code Authority. You know what the Comics Code Authority is?
Never heard of it.
It's kind of like the MPAA. The MPAA has the rating system.
Yeah.
That the Motion Picture Association of America is a conglomeration of all the big studios, and they say, we are going to police ourselves. We're going to have our own, committee that we put together that will put ratings on these films so that people know what to expect when they go into them, what kind of movie it is, what kind of content it's going to have, so they'll be able to tell their kids. The Comics Code Authority was very similar, where in the, I want to say 40s or 50s, there were some comics that were straying into very like obviously adult territory, and people got scared. And so all of the comics companies got together and they said, we'll put together this, and I might be telling this story wrong, so I might get some angry tweets, but basically we'll put together a system, a body of judges, and they'll have certain rules, right? And one of them was you couldn't show zombies.
That's so weird.
There was like, obviously other things like no nudity, no swearing. They had these very specific rules, and he did break the rules, but from today's standpoint, it still doesn't feel like, if I was gonna say you could make it like PG, maybe with not showing some of the weird, creepy monster stuff, because he gets so creepy with the imagery. But when it's a plant guy, it's not a zombie. So he was able to sort of get around that until a certain point when he decided they were. But it's not. It is something that could kind of give you the willies as a kid, but it's not something that if I saw my kid reading it, I'd be like, hey, you can't. No, that's way too adult for you. It straddles that line really interestingly.
They should make a Netflix series of it.
I think that it could do really well as a cartoon, as sort of like well, I guess they don't do hand-drawn animation anymore. I don't know how it would work as CG. But if you had sort of a darker, a cartoon that was in that same vein where kids can watch it, but it has sort of heavier themes and adults can get into it as well.
Yeah, like the Invader Zim level stuff. Although Invader Zim's still a little bit more kid-oriented.
Yeah, that's more comic. I mean, there's nothing well, there was that one with the Pog. Those were pretty funny, but even that was like super depressing once you got to the end. But there's not much funny stuff in the Swamp Thing. It's very serious.
You turn that into like a plucky series. It would just kill what Alan Moore did with it.
Yes, that's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is Sharknado 4. Because they just released that trailer this week, Tony.
I watched your reaction more than I watched that trailer.
That was... I'm so excited.
Who are some of the cameos you've heard about for this one?
I don't know who these people are, half of them. I know who David Hasselhoff is, but then there's like a lot of the people who have been in the other ones, and I honestly don't care about the cameos. I just care that they have new types of tornadoes and they have new types of sharks.
And possibly alien sharks?
It looks like possibly alien sharks. It looks like they have fire tornadoes. It looked like they had a lightning nado. I don't know what all else they had. There was a cow nado. They're still not topping the Z Nation zombie nado, but man, am I pumped up for Sharknado 4 and their NATO action.
What if Z Nation is just like the eventual post? Like, what if it turns into like Shark Nation and it's just a band of survivors like that? I could see that being there by like the 6th one.
Maybe I don't want it to tie together like that.
Collapsed because of the Sharknadoes.
I would like for Sharknado 5 to be a post-apocalyptic, like Sharknado ravaged world. That would be cool, but I don't want it to tie into Z Nation. Yes, yes, exactly. That would be cool, but not. I don't need the connection there. Like little nods are fine. The fact that they had Warren in the Sharknado universe. But I don't actually want to see more than that. I don't want them to start talking about Sharknadoes in Z Nation. I say that, and now that I've said it out loud, I might be okay with it. I just don't need it to be like a hard, fast, continuity. I don't want it to sit down and be like, all right, well, in this year is when the Z Nation thing happened, so Sharknado only goes up to here. Like, I don't want anybody thinking that hard about it.
Well, if you look at the militaries that are always in Asylum movies, like it kind of feels like a shared universe sometimes.
Well, because they're all the same 5 guys.
Yeah, it's the same 5 guys. It's all incompetent. Like, the military can never handle what one person with no training could beat. Sometimes they have some weird robot.
The military keeps making the same stupid mistakes, though. In all of these movies. Like, come on. I just saw the trailer for Godzilla Resurgence, and they have... okay, helicopters, right? They're gonna attack Godzilla. Stupid idea, but okay. How do they attack Godzilla? They sit single file and fly directly towards him and shoot at him with their machine guns. What is wrong with like right in front of his face, right in front of the part where the fire comes out, Tony? The atomic fire blast that will knock every single one of those helicopters out of the water into the water at the same time. Who trained these people? Come at him from behind.
Or, use your range, because those huge autocannons can actually fire from like a mile away.
Well, Godzilla, I think, can probably fire breath for a mile as well.
That's true. But even if he was gearing up to it, you could at least start getting out of the way.
I realize this is annoying nitpicking. This is like saying, why didn't so-and-so in Game of Thrones weave more? I'm not saying his name because I don't want to give any spoilers. But clearly, from the context of cinematics and storytelling, you maybe don't exactly use real tactics and military intelligence, but it still does feel like, come on, guys. Like, this is the worst way to attack this thing.
Now I'm just thinking that Game of Thrones thing. They brought back that actor for one line and he didn't even get to speak it. Anyway, what about some movie news other than Sharknado? You were showing me like The Magnificent Seven earlier, which has like Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt and Vincent D'Onofrio and all sorts of people. I guess
we can talk about a real movie, Tony.
Yes, fine. We can talk about something that isn't CGI sharks flying through the air.
The Magnificent Seven trailer just looks... everything about this movie has been getting me on board, Tony. I saw this trailer. I like the last trailer. I like the music more in the last trailer. The
House of the Rising Sun, which you didn't realize was like an old song.
I did not. I for all I know, this could be an old song that's in this one trailer.
Yeah, Kanye. It's like 3 years old, probably.
Well, I'm sure he's had like 8,000 songs come since then.
Yeah, he's pretty prolific.
But it's very exciting to see this series getting, the series. I haven't seen Magnificence 1 through 6, but I'm sorry.
There's probably been enough remakes that you could do that almost to 7. Like if you count the old samurai ones and everything. Because there was like a TV version, there was like an 80s version. There's a lot of different Magnificent 7 and 7 Samurai things out there.
There were sequels to the original Magnificent 7, which I don't know if you guys have seen the original, but some of the guys die, and they just... I never saw the sequels, but I was kind of wondering, like, how does this Magnificent 7 ride thing work exactly? Where did they get... Did they hire new people? Did they just sort of retcon the idea that they died? Like, oh no, they got better.
It's like...
They clawed their ways out of those graves.
Magnificent 7 is followed by, like, Magnificent 4 and a third because somebody lost a leg and a hand.
That's what we need. Chris Pratt looks good in this. Vincent D'Onofrio looks good in it. Obviously, Denzel looks good. Everything about this is just, yeah.
It's going to be awesome. I don't care if it's a remake. Sometimes the remakes are okay. Especially when you're talking about a remake that's pretty old.
Are there any more old Japanese samurai movies that we can remake as Westerns?
I'm sure there's about 1,000.
It seems like that we, instead of remaking the movie that already got remade, and I, by the way, not complaining about remakes. I'm excited about this. But what else is there out there that we can totally rip off from
Japanese? You could
Japanese?
probably even just go through, like, stick with the Akira Kurosawa's movies and be fine. Like, I'm sure he made enough that there's a few rip-offs that haven't been done. I'm sure you've got the good, the bad, and the ugly and all that, but there's got to be some other stories.
By the way, this reminds me of the news story that came out about Rian Johnson. He sent watched several movies to inspire Episode 8, Star Wars Episode 8, and they released a list of them, including 12 O'Clock High, which is apparently a war movie with fighter pilots flying raids over Germany, and the more famous Bridge Over the River Kwai, starring the original Obi-Wan, Alec Guinness.
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw that they had posted that list. I didn't go through all the movies. But it's a good idea. I mean, if you're trying to capture a certain tone, like have your entire crew watch like 5 or 6 where you're pulling your ideas from, see how it turns out.
Well, and it's, that's why it's good to be that kind of film nerd, right? You know that somebody else has done it better, or at least done it really well, and that nobody's, even Bridge Over the River Kwai, or Bridge on the River Kwai, I'm sorry. I have seen it, but it's been so long, and I bet there's a lot of people, casual moviegoers, who maybe have heard of it but have no idea. You can rip off stuff that has been done before, and nobody will notice except for, movie nerds.
Or you pay really good homage to things. Like one of the most striking scenes in the new Star Wars movie was the TIE fighters flying through with the sun in the background and the waves going.
Yeah, I'm saying rip off facetiously, Tony. You can steal stuff in a good way. I think that I'm absolutely fine with taking other ideas and remixing them and putting them in different ways. And it's way more palatable than just a straight reboot is. You can take the things from the past that worked and leave the stuff that didn't. But reboot is sort of more like, hey, here's this IP. We're gonna do that because people remember that name.
Yeah, like the recent Ghostbusters, which was a reboot instead of just
rebate?
A rebate. Yeah, get your rebate on Ghostbusters. Which that movie has done better than I thought it would, judging by all the hate that's been out there since that first trailer dropped. To see it actually kind of just be a B-level movie kind of surprised me. I thought it was going to just completely fail.
I don't know if you read my rundown on that, but basically I said, listen, nobody... there were people online who were like, this is gonna ruin the original Ghostbusters, it's terrible, they're taking everything about. And then there were people who were like, this is great for women, and what feminism is gonna be put forward because neither one of those groups wins here. The movie is neither the great step forward for feminism nor the kick in the teeth to the original Ghostbusters that anybody wanted it to be. It's just okay. It's just there's funny parts. I went in, there were several parts where I laughed a lot. I really enjoyed some of it. And then some of the characters were a little bit weak, and the plot kind of just went Hollywood towards the end, and it was fine. It wasn't great.
Did you like the end boss?
I was fine with it. It wasn't it worked within the context of the movie, I thought.
Had you seen all the Ghostbusters movies like whenever you were younger? Or is that something that you looked at later?
I don't remember how old I was. I mean, it's been a long time since I saw Ghostbusters, but I don't know exactly how long.
You at least understood a little bit of the cultural significance, though. It's not like a movie where, like a lot of times, like with The Simpsons, where you are just completely out of that loop.
I mean, I'm not in the loop that loves them unabashedly. I'm not in that loop. I'm just in the, I saw it. I was fine with it when I saw it. I'm in that loop, Tony.
That very strange passive loop.
This is the passive episode. The episode about things that I'm just okay with.
Yeah. Peanut butter, Ghostbusters, anything but Swamp Thing and sharks. And
Stranger Things.
Yeah, so Stranger Things you were definitely excited about, and that show like seems like it was pretty much made for you for like the serious part of things you like, not the silly part of things you like. Like, because you'll like shows that get pretty out there as long as they stick with their world. This one seems like it's a lot more well crafted and budgetized and everything.
I gotta say, I mean, and I don't know if I've made it clear enough, but I think Stranger Things is the best Netflix series that I've seen. Period.
That's a bold statement. Well, I guess you didn't like House of Cards as much as I do.
Yeah, I keep meaning to go back to it, but no,
it's more entertaining than this election cycle.
More entertaining this election cycle? This election cycle just keeps going.
I know. It's stopped being entertaining to me.
Yeah? You haven't enjoyed the memes about whoever Trump's wife is ripping off Michelle Obama's speech from 2008?
I'm already fatigued from it. I need to see some of the memes, though. I've not seen those memes. I read about what happened, and I saw some people making like fake tweets to go along with it, but I have not even heard everything that happened with that.
I think somebody like just tweeted out, it's like from the Republican National Convention. It's like, and in conclusion, I'm happy to be an American, black woman in America tonight. I was like, that's funny stuff. People are mad. People are so mad.
Joe Biden
and they're
got
doing
away
the
with
thing
a
where
lot
they're like, yeah. Well, you guys need to talk about back at like 1985 when Teddy, what's his face? Not Teddy Roosevelt, because he's.
If he was around in 1985, that'd be a completely different story.
They should have been reporting about that, Tony. Teddy Roosevelt came back from the dead and plagiarized Ronald Reagan, and nobody said anything about it. It was a completely non-news story. Ronald Reagan was like, guys, can I get some help here? And they're like, nope. No, you're on your own with this one.
The Comedy Store in California used to have a Joe Biden night where the comedians would go out and steal each other's material and do each other's bits, because at that time he got caught stealing from John F. Kennedy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's funny. That's very funny. By the way, there are 2 movies coming up that we are very excited about. I think we've decided to divide and conquer this week, Tony. Is that correct?
Yeah, like I know both of us kind of want to see these movies, but it's more of a like, how is there time for both of us to see both of these and make 2 bonus whatevers on them? And
for Tony to watch Stranger Things in the next week, because he needs to do that also.
That'll probably happen before I see both of these movies, but
we're talking about Star Trek Beyond and Lights Out, which are both in the early buzz, doing very well on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, so I'm always surprised whenever a horror movie can start doing that. Like the last time we saw one that was getting this kind of buzz, it was probably The Witch, maybe a little bit for The Conjuring 2, but it didn't end up getting quite the numbers that we thought it would. Like, or at least I thought it would last time I checked. Star Trek looks pretty awesome. I'm glad to see that the Asian girl from The Kingsman is in this one. I don't know what the character's name is, but she's the one in the trailer with the interesting face makeup. Really excited to see where they take that one.
Yeah, they put all of their people of color behind giant masks and face makeup. Just a little bit hilarious.
Except Uhura.
Uhura's not super dark skinned.
That's true.
I'm not trying to cast any shade on that. I don't want to be misread there, but like
it's also the straight hair and everything else.
Yes, but anyway, Lights Out is tracking really well. It's got 100% currently as we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon with 13 reviews counted. Star Trek Beyond at 91% from Justin Lin, who, by the way, this is just something I've been thinking about in general lately, but I think Justin Lin is a heck of a director. I know people think of the Fast and Furious movies as silly, stupid popcorn fun, but silly, stupid popcorn fun, in my opinion, is at least as difficult to make as like the heavy drama stuff. And there's something about us as human beings that doesn't respect something if it makes us feel good.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird like that. It's like all the comedy movies and stuff. We have so much disrespect for people that like literally get joy from Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Right. And by the way, I'm going to say this again. I've said this before. I laughed some at Paul Blart Mall Cop. I got done with that movie and I was like, that was so dumb. I don't regret having watched that at all. You guys can bring the hate on Twitter or whatever. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Justin Lin does with this because I think he's a smart director. He knows how to do action. He understands more than people think he understands. And I think he has a good handle on things like story. Even in I understand people are going to say, well, if simple stories and stuff and the characters are caricatures, things that look easy are often very, very complicated. And I think Justin Lin is going to do awesome stuff with this.
Especially take the burden of a franchise that's as well loved as that on your shoulders is a lot of pressure. So it sounds like he was able to make it work. I keep trying to figure out what Carl Urban meant whenever he talked about the difference between working for J.J. Abrams and working for Justin Lin. And like he's like, everybody's going to take this out of context and they're going to write so many bad Tumblr posts about it. But he's just very, 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 very Asian.
All right.
From the words of Carl Urban.
Well, with that quote, legendary quote from Carl Urban, I think it's about time to close this one up, Tony.
All right, everybody. I need you right now. Go to humanechoes.com. First off, click around because we got a lot of really cool stuff there. Second off, there is a button that says become a member. If you become a member, you get access to the bonus podcast. You get access to pins. You get access to a ton of really cool stuff. Like if you want a shirt, you sign up for the $20 a month. If you want pins, postcards, all sorts of things, there are different tiers. $2, $5, $10, or $20. Any of those help us out immensely. It's worth thousands of views on YouTube. It's worth a lot of different things that we can do to actually monetize it. It's just a direct way to help us out. Second best way to help us out is for free, and that's through reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, or any platform that allows reviews. Third way beyond that is through the Amazon portal that we have on the website. On the right-hand side, you should see our books, and in a lot of these posts, you should see links to Amazon. If you click on those for the next 24 hours, anything you buy, we get a cut of. It can't be from stuff that was previously in your cart. It has to be stuff added after the cookie, but we get a percentage of that, and it's awesome to see. That thing has actually been tracking pretty well. There's a lot of you out there who are already using it, and we thank you very much for that. And yeah, anything else, Al?
I just wanted to hit the review thing again. If you're still listening at this point through all of our spiel about becoming a member, there's a chance that you do like the podcast. And if you haven't left us a review, that is incredibly helpful. Would really appreciate it. Those reviews have been going up, and also tweet somebody else about the podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, tell somebody else about it. Those things are immeasurably valuable to us.
And just having you guys around is awesome too. Hit us up on Twitter at HEPodcast, at TSOUTHCOTTE. And
we're really going to have to rebuild our membership after the peanut butter fiasco too.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be weeks.
I think we just lost about 50 people. So, get in there and do your part. You could become part of the new inner circle now that the old inner circle hates us.
Exactly. You guys have an awesome week, and we will see you next Friday.
Bye.